Okay, so my name is Brent Haas. I'm Associate Dean and Director of Admission Affairs here at YCA. I'm happy that you are interested in our program and are taking the time today to learn a little bit more about what our program offers and some advice for potential applicants. So the contents of today's program are as follows. I will be speaking on the first 3 points here. I'll introduce briefly Peking University. I'll give quite a detailed introduction to YCA's program, fellowship, courses, academics, student life, some basic biographical data on the over 815 applicants who've joined our program as Yenching scholars. I'll tell you more about the application requirements and the timeline. And then I'll step back and we'll have a couple Yenching scholars, alumni of the program, who will join to share some of their thoughts about their motivation for joining the program, tips about the application process, their experience here, and then we'll have time for a Q&A. Now, since this is a Zoom webinar, you will not be able to automatically turn on your microphones or your cameras to speak. We do welcome you to type in any questions that you might have into the Q&A function, and either my colleagues in the admissions office will answer them directly, or we will answer them. I'll indicate that we'll answer them live towards the end of today's presentation. I can see we already have one question in there about nominees from partner universities. They're typing answer as well, but I will address your question more broadly about the application procedure for those candidates from partner universities. So hopefully my presentation will take under 40 minutes, and then we'll have time for the alumni sharing session and then plenty of time left for Q&A. So let's get started. Peking University is China's oldest and most respected institution of higher education. It was founded at the very end of the 19th century as part of what was otherwise considered a more or less failed reform movement in the latter years of the Qing dynasty, the so-called 100 Days of Reform. Although it ended up being overall unsuccessful, one of the lasting legacies was the founding of the predecessor to Peking University, the Imperial University of Peking, Jingzhi Daxue. Here you can see a little bit an overview of our campus. If you're familiar with Beijing, we're located in the northwestern section of the city in the Haidian district, just outside of the northwest 4th Ring Road, with China's tech hub, Zhongguancun, a little bit to our south, our neighboring university, Tsinghua University, just to our east, and a little bit farther east, sort of the center of university student life in Beijing, Wudaokou. I'll give you some more lovely shots of PKU's campus. Down in the bottom left is Weiming Lake, no-name lake. It is the most scenic and most frequently photographed spot of an already scenic and lovely campus. A few more shots of our campus here that I won't dwell too long on. I will share with you a little bit about Jingyuan, the Jingyuan Courtyard. This is a historically and culturally significant section of Peking University's campus. Jingyuan used to be one of the core areas of a former university on the spot, Yenching University, which was active from 1916 to 1952. Jingyuan and this section of campus was built by an American architect in the mid-1920s, and it is where Yenching Academy has our administration building, our teaching building, as well as our large multimedia lecture halls. Although Yenching University and Yenching Academy of Peking University share some of the same buildings and share one word in our name, it's important to note that Yenching University and Peking University had no formal affiliation. At the time, Peking University was located closer to the northeastern section of the Forbidden City, down more in the city center. And when Yenching University closed in 1952, PKU moved from its old campus out to the campus that we know and love today. So Jingyuan, like Peking University, is a significant place and a lovely place to live, to study, and to work. So lovely, in fact, that we've been adopted by our mascot, Fengzhua, the cat that you see here on the left. Fengzhua is one of the many, many cats that live on PKU's campus and are cared for by a dedicated team, actually, student volunteers who feed them, spay and neuter them, and document their daily activities on social media. So Peking University today has over 11,000 faculty members that are organized into 51 different schools and departments, plus 10 important research laboratories. These faculty, along with the dedicated and professional administrative staff at the university, serve over 46,000 students, including over 4,000 international students. So what is YCA? The most basic level, we are a fully funded 2-year master's degree program in interdisciplinary China studies. That means that we tend to focus mainly on today's China, contemporary China, but we obviously focus as well historically on the major policy, economic, political, social, and cultural changes that have taken place in China over the last 4 decades or so, and how those changes have not only shaped life here, but have affected and altered China's role in the world. Now, I have had the good fortune of teaching about 5 different courses of Yenching scholars over my several years here at the program, as well as running what is now my 4th round administering the admissions process here at YCA. And I personally guarantee that those who join our program are outstanding young scholars. They are interested. They're interested in better understanding China. They're interesting people. They come from a diverse set of backgrounds, both regionally, nationally, culturally, what have you, as well as different academic levels of engagement with China, different professional backgrounds as well. We're also part of a really fascinating experience, in my opinion, a fascinating process of bringing the best practices of interdisciplinary education and interdisciplinary teaching methods and research methods to the already fairly fully formed system of Chinese higher education at the graduate level. And part of our implementation of interdisciplinarity is the process of defining what China studies as an academic discipline means when it's done at China's top university, largely taught by Peking University faculty. And when you have people from all over the world with different backgrounds, different opinions, all interested in China, sharing, reading some of the same books and articles, taking some of the same courses, interacting with the same professors, whether you're in class in the dormitory, the cafeteria, or walking around campus, you really do find some very, very interesting, sometimes challenging, but always rewarding dialogues across cultures. We are what you might call a residential college program, in that the first year, all Yenching scholars are required to live on campus in the Yenching Academy House, a dormitory reserved for Yenching scholars and nicely renovated and appointed. International scholars have the option of living off campus in Beijing for their 2nd year, but scholars from the Chinese mainland and from the regions of Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan are required to be in the dormitory on campus for both years. The language of instruction and administration at YCA is English. No prior proficiency, fluency, or study of the Chinese language is required for admission into the program. Now, that having been said, we are a highly competitive graduate program based in China, focusing on China studies. So if you have a record of academic engagement with China, perhaps including high levels of proficiency in the Chinese language, you should emphasize that in your application materials. It can potentially be a competitive advantage. We encourage our students to explore Peking University's community, student community, cultural community, and academic community. We encourage you to take courses outside of Yenching Academy and other schools and departments at our university. For most international students, that will generally be English language courses. Although if you are highly proficient or approaching professional fluency, as evidenced by a HSK6 passing test score, we can encourage you to take content courses taught in Chinese. It's a wonderful experience, a wonderful challenge, but quite a difficult task indeed. Let's talk funding. So the Yenching Academy Fellowship includes full tuition payment. It includes accommodation at the Yenching Academy House, our dormitory, for the first year. It includes a monthly stipend of 3,000 renminbi. Roughly, it's now seems to be approaching around $700 US a month, depending on the fluctuations in the exchange rate. We pay for round trip travel from your home city to and from Beijing in the first year. And we offer basic medical insurance for all of our students. This medical insurance is the standard package offered by a Chinese insurance company for international students living and studying in China. In the second year, if international scholars choose to live off campus in Beijing, then we can offer a 3,000 renminbi housing stipend. That will be sufficient for you to have a private room in a shared apartment, but given the rent prices in Beijing today, it generally won't be enough to have your own individual apartment in the city. So this is a significant financial investment we're making in the entire student body at YCA. Please remember that we have generally 120 to 125 students in one class and 2 classes in the program at any given time. So although you should consider this program 2 years fully funded, we do have an academic performance review at the end of the first year. For your information, in your first year, you will complete all of your coursework. The second year is left for research, writing your thesis, interviews, site visits, etc. As well as internships are available in your second year, but they are not allowed in your first year. Trust me, you will be too busy in year 1. So at the end of the first year, though the thesis is not completed in the first year, the thesis will be completed by the end of the second year. The earliest that you can early graduate is December or January of your second year. It is a very challenging process. We don't recommend it. Early graduation is available only for truly exceptionally strong master's theses. I can tell you a little bit more about that later at the end. So the end of your first academic year, you reapply for second year funding. And in the academic performance review, if you meet some clearly defined performance standards that are laid out to you at the beginning of your time at YCA, such as completing the minimum number of academic course credits, maintaining a certain minimum GPA, not failing any of the core courses at YCA, and not seriously violating the regulations of the Yenching Academy, PKU, or the laws of China, you apply and you will receive it for the second year. So just please keep that in mind. It's a 2-year program with an academic performance review once you finish your coursework. We have other funding opportunities available, such as a fellowship program for independent research in the first year, known as the Dean's Research Fellowship. We have teaching assistantships, office assistantships, RA-ships for your second year. We also have opportunity grants for students who submit papers for international academic conferences. And we have in the second year, the Language Enrichment Scholarship, which allows further intensive language study, generally Chinese for international students, but also other foreign languages for native Chinese speakers. Okay, I need to spend a few minutes talking about the research areas at YCA. This is part of how we have been integrating interdisciplinary teaching and research methodology into the Ministry of Education approved system of degrees. This is also how we are in the process of administratively defining what China studies in China means. These research areas will be important to your academic experience at YCA in 3 main reasons. At the application review stage, at the stage of selecting a thesis advisor, and upon graduation. At the application stage, you choose one of these research areas in which to conduct your research for your master's thesis. Now, these are still very broad interdisciplinary research areas. We all know there are major differences between history and archaeology, between legal studies and sociology, between political science and international relations. So they are still quite broad, but you need to commit to one of these research areas when you apply. Now, when you do so, you should also be aware that part of our admissions team's responsibility is to review your degree, to review your your academic transcripts, any papers you've written, publications you may have, internship or professional experience that may or may not be related to the research area to which you're applying. And our goal is to assess the likelihood that, considering what you have already learned and experienced in your life, we need to the highest degree possible, feel confident that you can be successful conducting graduate research at China's top university in China studies using those methodologies. So what does that mean? It means that you need to have some kinds of academic or professional or internship experience that prepares you for research in economics and management. What it does not mean is you can only apply to the research area for which you already have or will soon have a degree. We want you to study what you're interested in, but we need to make sure that you are well enough prepared for graduate level research appropriate to the master's degree level upon entering the program. So if perhaps your degree and your professional experience doesn't seem to match up on the surface with the research area you're choosing, anticipate that we're going to have some questions about that and try to address those questions in your applications materials. So let's take economics and management as an example. If you're applying for China Studies Economics and Management and your research proposal suggests that you might want to do regression analysis and sort of economic data analysis as the main methodology for your master's thesis, but you've never taken microeconomics, macroeconomics, statistical analysis, well, then you should assume that we're going to think, they don't have a degree in a similar field. They don't seem to have coursework that suggests they've been trained for this. How are they prepared? And try to address those questions in your research materials. Perhaps you have some, financial internships where you're doing work that prepares you for this. These are the kinds of things that we're going to ask, and these are the kinds of answers you should try to give us in your application materials. Now, if you haven't taken micro, macro, et cetera, but you've taken, institutional theory, if you focused on management, if you were doing these sort of business track, and your proposed research topic is on changing HR policies at private Chinese companies, or comparing employee life and management practices at private companies and state-owned enterprises in China in the last 10 years, that makes a lot more sense. So please understand how we look at the research areas you're choosing in relation to your previous academic training and professional and or internship experience. So the second way that this research area affects your time at YCA is when you select a thesis advisor. So remember, at the first year, you will be focusing on your coursework. It's not until the end of the spring semester of your first year that you will need to submit a formal thesis proposal. That's when you nail down what your actual thesis topic will be. And in so doing, you select a thesis advisor. Now, this thesis advisor needs to be drawn from an academic school or department with a research profile that matches up with your major methodology. So let's say you're in law and society. If you're interested in exploring, changes to the Chinese judicial system over the last 20 years, then you probably need a thesis advisor coming from the School of Law. If you are looking at changing gender roles in Chinese families under the context of the drastically aging population in China, sort of a demographic changes influencing Chinese family structure, well, then you probably want someone drawn from the Department of Sociology. And then finally, when you graduate, this research area is what will show up on your diploma. It will say Peking University, China Studies, Master of Economics, China Studies, Economics and Management. Peking University, Master of History, China Studies, History and Archaeology. Peking University, Master of Law, China Studies, Law and Society, etc. That's sort of how we have fit interdisciplinary China studies into the previously existing system of degree conferrals established by China's Ministry of Education. So in the first year, all Yenching scholars will together take the courses that are in the upper left, titled Core Courses. Very briefly, China in Transition 1 and 2 is a 2-semester multidisciplinary look at contemporary China. The fall semester is co-taught by a team of outstanding Peking University faculty in different sort of modules. Let's say a module on the Chinese political system, module on Chinese economics, module on Chinese culture, Chinese society, etc. This course is geared in 2 ways: to introduce you to a diverse set of faculty members at Peking University, and to set a baseline of information that all Yenching scholars need to share in their first semester. It is a large lecture combined with breakout discussion sessions in smaller groups immediately after the lecture. Sometimes the lecture is also organized in a faculty panel or debate or discussion. China in Transition 2 is individually taught by the same professors who co-taught the fall semester. You select a professor whose research area and research interests are most closely aligned with yours. You sign up for their class, and that class is taught by a single professor and does a little bit more discipline-focused, methodologically focused study of contemporary China, part of which includes, under the professor's guidance, designing and carrying out a field research project. This not only gives you a more methodologically driven approach to understanding today's China, but also some field research experience in China in preparation for your master's thesis research, which will be conducted in your second year. Field study is a required course that combines lectures, assigned readings beforehand, but it leads up to a week-long travel learning experience that is designed to take the learning experience outside of the classroom and outside of Beijing. The last few years, we've been going to Chengdu in Sichuan province in southwestern China. The China Studies lecture series brings together leading figures in different fields and industries that are connected to China Studies, some academics, some business leaders, some artists, some cultural figures, some officials, etc. And this gives you a real broad look at how individuals have crafted fascinating and influential careers, broadly defined, related to China. A couple of weeks ago, I hosted one by an assistant professor at the School of Government at Peking University, looking at the process of localities negotiating with the regions above them in the pecking order and with the central government to determine how and where high-speed rail networks would travel. So it's complicating the process of one of the most outstanding infrastructure projects in recent memory, and through political scientific methods, understanding the process of how the map of China's high-speed rail network was determined. Next week, I'm hosting a lecture by Professor Cheng Le-song at Peking University on early Taoist philosophy and religious thought. And then academic writing is a series of seminars, lectures, and discussions designed to help train you, give you a bit of a step-by-step process from conceptualizing, designing, conducting your research, analyzing your data, drafting and defending a master's thesis. Now, all international Yenching scholars must take Chinese language courses. We believe that communication in Chinese language and reading Chinese text are essential to any scholar of China. Native Chinese speakers from the Chinese regions of the mainland, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan are required to take another foreign language course, non-English foreign language course, because English proficiency is required for admission. If an international scholar has completed and passed the HSK level 6, HSK is mainland China's standardized test for assessing language proficiency for non-native speakers. If you have completed and passed level 6 in the last 2 years, you can place out of Chinese as a second language courses, but you are still required to replace those course credits with content courses, and we encourage you to do so with content courses taught in Chinese. Here are some of the elective courses that are on offer for 2022 to 2023 at YCA. This slide is Econ and Social Sciences. The next slide are broadly defined the humanities. I want to emphasize that Although these are in columns, they're categorized along the research areas. All Yenching scholars are allowed to and are in fact encouraged to take courses across research areas. It doesn't matter what your research area is, you select the elective courses that are interesting to you and hopefully expand your interdisciplinary understanding of China and better prepare you for an interdisciplinary methods-driven master's thesis. So don't worry about the columns and the classifications of these courses. You take the courses that you and your faculty advisor think will help you become a better scholar and be more successful in your master's thesis. On the humanities side, you can see the courses that are offered this year. For your information, I'm teaching a course, History of the Field, Sinology and China Studies from a Global Perspective, as this fall. And I'm also teaching a modern Chinese history seminar in the spring that will likely be a look at late imperial and modern Chinese history through a retrospective of the writings of one historian who recently passed away, the late great Jonathan D. Spence from Yale University. One of the real unique selling points of YCA compared to other top graduate programs in China is our academic advising system. Most Yenching scholars will have two core academic advisors in their time here. First year is the faculty advisor, and second year is the thesis advisor. These are the, we have 140 academic advisors that come from 24 different departments or schools at PKU. You can see a list of some of the schools and departments from which our advisors are drawn. In the first year, students, through a process of mutual selection with the faculty member, have a faculty advisor. They choose this advisor within a few weeks of arriving on campus. This faculty advisor is there to essentially introduce you to the faculty and academic community at Peking University, not just at Yenching Academy. They learn about your developing research interests. They discuss and advise you on courses you should take. Hopefully they will already be an expert in the specific area that you're looking to focus on. But if not, they are there to help introduce you to the faculty members who are experts in that field. So in some ways they help you navigate PKU's faculty community. Now it's wonderful if your first year faculty advisor becomes your second year thesis advisor. However, that is not required. It does happen in a significant number of Yenching scholars, but we just think it's not reasonable to ask scholars who just arrived on campus, within the first month, to identify who their thesis advisor will be for the second year. Here's some of the shots of our fall field study. This is the recent few years we've been going to Chengdu in Sichuan province and Chongqing municipality in southwestern China. So yes, we go visit the pandas. Yes, we enjoy some delicious Sichuanese cuisine, but it is a much more than a tourist event. For instance, we go to the Sanxingdui archaeological site. Now, any tourist can go there and go to their museum, which is a fascinating museum. We go to the museum, but since we are Yenching Academy, we actually get to go into the archaeological excavation site itself and get a guided tour by Peking University archaeologists and even get to go in and look down into the excavation pits. This is a fantastic, unique opportunity, and this door is only open because we're from PKU and from Yenching Academy. In the spring, I mentioned China in Transition Part 2 integrates field research into the second semester of CIT. Pre-pandemic, you can see that we had, like in 2019, 30 different groups of students visited 15 provinces, areas, what have you, around China. This is funded by YCA. It's built into the course. We also encourage elective professors of elective courses, when appropriate, to integrate site visits or field research into their elective courses, also funded by YCA. Our Student Affairs Office is responsible for student life outside of academics. And part of their responsibility is offering you career development advice training. We have a lot of sessions. These are all voluntary sessions We draw upon our growing and incredibly impressive network of Yenching Scholar alumni. Recently, we've just been adding in the professional advisor system, where we have, mid or late career professionals in different fields and industries, generally based in Beijing, so you can be more closely connected to them, that offer their services and their time, and you can sign up to be their advisee, meet with them, talk about your career path, learn about their experiences, perhaps do some professional shadowing, etc. After graduation, Yenching Scholars are quite successful in taking meaningful next steps in their career. About 20% or a little bit more of Yenching Scholars go on to further graduate study, generally at the doctoral level. Some go to law school, even med school. Here you can see some of the top universities that Yenching Scholars have attended after leaving our program. Or you can see some of the international organizations, consulting firms, etc., that Yenching Scholars have entered into as they transition into the professional stage of their career. Through our door, it was a multimedia history, culture, and art exhibition thought of, carried out by Yenching Scholars a couple of years ago. It was a multimedia project that centered its attention on Jingyuan Courtyards 3 and mainly 4. Jingyuan Courtyard 4 used to be the female students' dormitory at Yenching University. This combined archival research, oral history interviews, archival photos, other photography and sculpture to create a representation of the memories of Jingyuan Courtyard 4. This was initially created by a Yenching scholar who came from Harvard University and majored in art and philosophy. She came to me and to other Yenching Academy staff and leadership and said, hey, I want to do a multimedia art cultural exhibition focusing on the space that we live and work and study in. Can I do that? And I remember telling her, I don't know, we've never done anything like this. Why don't you get some classmates together, get a proposal, and come to us with a formal proposal, and we'll see what we can do. And it was outstanding. We ended up funding them significantly. You can, if you want to look at a virtual exhibition, you can scan that QR code there. This is one example of how Yenching Academy is not a one-size-fits-all program. We don't look for simply one quote-unquote profile of an ideal applicant. And we don't just offer one learning experience for scholars who join the program. This student and her colleagues had a big idea, applied for support and funding, discussed it with the leadership, and made it a truly outstanding exhibition. The Yenching Global Symposium, our flagship extracurricular event, a global China studies conference that focuses on delegates at early stages in their careers, was also this kind of brainstorming turned reality by Yenching scholars. In the first cohort of Yenching scholars, they came to the administration with the idea to have an international China studies conference. They gave us proposals, we offered them funding and guidance, and YGS is now a beloved and memorable institution at the Yenching Academy every year. You can see that these are the topics for the first 5 years of YGS. Or I guess this calendar year, but last academic year, the 2022 YGS, grappled with issues of globalization, anti-globalization, the perhaps potential resurgence of nation states on the international stage. It was all under the context of COVID. It was a challenging and thought-provoking and very rewarding academic experience for our delegates. I want to emphasize that YGS is conceptualized, organized, and run by Yenching scholars themselves. Yenching Academy Student Affairs staff offers administrative support. Okay, wrapping up my presentation, you can see that of the over 850 scholars that have joined us in our first 8 cohorts between 2015 and 2022, we have had scholars join from 84 different countries and regions, a highly diverse student body every year. Obviously, we realize that we have some more work to do to improve our student enrollment numbers from Africa and Latin America. In the first 8 cohorts, we've had scholars from 348 different universities around the world. What you see here are the universities that over the first 8 cohorts have placed the highest number of graduates at Yenching Academy. Most Yenching scholars, their highest academic degree attained before joining our program is a bachelor's degree, but we do welcome applications, and every year accept a significant number of students who have at least one, sometimes more, postgraduate degrees. Generally another master's degree, but we often have students join us with a law degree as well. Over the course of the first 8 cohorts, you can see the breakdown of research areas chosen by Yenching scholars. Pardon me. Obviously, politics and international relations and economics and management are the 2 most popular. Law and society is 3rd, and the humanities occupy about 20% overall. What I would like to say about this is not planned. We don't have a quota. This is not the ideal breakdown of research areas that we have planned out. This simply reflects the research area that the most competitive and most talented applicants chose in any given year. Obviously, I would like to see a more even spread of research areas. As a trained historian of China myself, I would like to have more history and archaeology students, etc. But we don't have a hard, we don't prefer one research area over the other. We look at your applications holistically, and we want you to study what you're interested in studying. In 2022, we welcomed 111 scholars from 27 different countries and regions. You can see some of the top level regional breakdown here on this slide. Scholars from 96 universities joined us in 2022, and here are the top 18 universities that placed more than 2 Yenching scholars, more than 2 graduates into our program in 2022. Okay, finally, let me tell you about the application stage. So we expect academic excellence from our students when they're here. We look for outstanding academic records. Achievement in the classroom is important for getting into YCA. We are a highly competitive program. So an outstanding academic record is important, but it's not the only thing we look for. We are also interested in extracurricular activities that are important to you, that perhaps help shape who you are as a young adult and as a young scholar. If you're an artist or an athlete, if you've started your own company, if you're committed to community service or charity work, these are things that we want to know about, because it helps us get a better sense of who you are as a person, and helps us think about how you might be able to contribute to our student community outside of the classroom. As a multicultural student body, we are interested in students who have a commitment to multiculturalism, who have experience in cross-cultural communication. And this is also part of not just studying China, it's part of integrating into the broader academic community of YCA. We value applicants who have a demonstrated interest in the academic study of China. You do not have to be an East Asian languages and civilizations major, Chinese minor, and be planning on going for a doctoral degree in a related field in order to get into YCA. We welcome those kinds of students, and we have successful applicants with that profile every year. We also have lots of students who are focused more on other fields, other professional interests, other academic concentrations, but at this point in their career, realize that they need a better understanding of China. Recently I've been seeing a lot of students who are interested in AI and big data, and they focus on that for their undergraduate or the early stages of their professional career. But then because of China's, the strength of China's big data and AI systems and industries, they now realize, oh, I need to know more about what's happening there. So they apply to YCA, and want to use their time at YCA to better understand not only contemporary China, but better understand the field that they're already well trained in, say AI or big data, and see how that works in China. That is also a profile of applicants that we welcome as well. I personally think having different levels of academic and professional and personal engagement with China in students in our program is actually very helpful. All are brilliant, all are accomplished, but if everyone had the same academic profile, then the questions they asked, the discussions they had, their viewpoints entering the program would be a little bit too similar. And I think the student community and the academic life at YCA would suffer for that. Like any graduate school or really job application, you need to tell us why you want to apply to YCA. We need to see a connecting thread between who you are as a person, what you've studied in the past, what you've done professionally or internship-wise, why you want to go to YCA, where you're going in your career, and how you think YCA will help you achieve those goals. And then English proficiency is required as well. Okay, so the application procedure is actually quite complicated. We essentially have 3 different application methods depending on where applicants are from. Applicants from mainland China, PRC citizens from mainland China are only able to apply through what is known as the exemption from the National Postgraduate Entrance Examination. In Chinese, and shortened Chinese, abbreviated Chinese, it's called 推免 exemption. And so permission to apply directly to a graduate program without taking the postgraduate entrance examination. That exemption system, 推免 system, requires that PRC citizens attend their bachelor's degree program in mainland China. Unfortunately, that means anyone with Chinese citizenship who does not attend university in mainland China is currently ineligible to apply for YCA. We continue to work on that to try to open up some spots for a very large community of Chinese who study abroad for their undergraduate degree. We have yet been successful on that. Please continue to check back with us if this meets your application profile. We're sorry for the bad news this year, but we continue to work on that for the future. International applicants will apply through the application portal on our website. I'll indicate some of the requirements next year, pardon me, on the next page. For applicants from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, you have 2 applications you have to complete. The first is the standard application along with international students on our webpage. But applicants from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan must also apply directly to the Peking University Graduate School. They have a specific application portal for candidates from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. It's almost exactly the same as ours, but there are a couple of distinctions. I'll tell you those distinctions coming up. The minimum requirement for candidacy to the program is a bachelor's degree by the time you enter the program. If you're applying for this year, that means, or if you're applying for 2023, that means you have to finish your degree, your bachelor's, by August 31st, 2023. Essentially, you can't start grad school until you finish college. So for international candidates, the overall application deadline is November 27th, 2022. You apply at yenchingacademy.netapply.cn. If you are a non-native English speaker or you are not enrolled in a university or a degree program where English is the main language of instruction, we need one of the standard English proficiency tests, IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge. We need to see diplomas from any degree programs from which you have graduated, or a certificate of enrollment if you are still in your bachelor's program. This is an official enrollment document from your university registrar. We need official transcripts of all degree granting programs at institutions of higher education that you have attended or are attending. Again, this is from your university registrar. We need a personal statement in English maximum 750 words. This is your standard grad school application essay. Who you are, why you're interested in our program, how you can contribute to our program, what you hope to do in your career, how you think this program and a degree from Peking University can help you achieve those goals. We also have a sort of a research-oriented introductory essay. This is the statement of research interest, maximum 1,500 words, excluding citations. So what this document is essentially your academic or research-focused self-introduction to the faculty at YCA. It can be a fully formed research proposal, but only if you really already have a well-formed research project that you plan to engage in while at YCA. Do not submit research proposals for research you have already conducted or are currently conducting. This is what you want to do while you're here. We used to call this the research proposal, but we thought it was a little too restrictive. That form or that title suggests too restrictive a form. This is a formal piece of academic writing. You should engage with academic literature in framing and explaining the topic or topics that you want to explore from a research perspective at YCA. It is possible for you to do more than one, but be careful with that. The more topics you discuss, the less depth with which you can discuss them. One or two is okay, but I wouldn't talk about 5 or 6 research projects. So formal academic language, what you want to study at YCA, anchor it in relation to academic literature. And that bit of advice goes for applying to any graduate program. Don't write about research in your application materials without referring to academic literature. We need a resume or CV, and we need 2 letters of recommendation. Those letters of recommendation must be academic referrals, and they must be from associate professors or full professors or higher. This is the standard requirement, not only at Peking University, but at top graduate programs in China, and we are unable to adjust that requirement. Associate professors, full professors, or higher. So those are the application requirements for international students. Application requirements for Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwanese applicants are almost exactly the same, except for 3 distinctions. The application, you apply to our application portal if you're from Hong Kong, Macau, or Taiwan, but you also apply to the Peking University Graduate School application portal for HMT, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan candidates. The deadline will be determined by PKU's graduate school, so it's generally going to be a little bit later than our deadline for international applicants. 2 changes: certificate of English proficiency and letters of recommendation. If you have graduated from a university or a graduate program that teaches in English, you do not need to submit a certificate of English proficiency. Essentially, your diploma replaces the need for a English proficiency test score. If you are enrolled but have not yet graduated in a university or a graduate school that teaches in English, you still need to submit an IELTS, TOEFL, or Cambridge score. Distinction 2, letters of recommendation. They still must be academic. They still must be from associate professors, full professors, or higher, but the professors must be teaching and researching in the field of the research area to which you're applying. So if you're applying to law and society, China Studies Law and Society, you need to have someone from the law school, legal studies, or perhaps sociology. Okay, those are the only 2 distinctions from the standard application material requirements. Why are there these distinctions? Because we are adjusting the application requirements based on the requirements of PKU graduate schools application portal, so that these applicants don't have to submit different kinds of documents to us and to PKU. Okay, that's all I have for you today. You can reach out to us at yca-admissions@pku.edu.cn. If you have more questions, please go to our website, look at the program, I really recommend you look at the profiles of current Yenching scholars to get a sense of the diversity of students who join us, not just regionally or culturally, but in terms of their academic training, their professional background, what degrees they have, what their level of engagement with China is, and see that despite different backgrounds, all are doing interesting things while they're here with us in at YCA. Zheng the floor is now yours.
Cool. Hello. So my name is Zheng Yuan, or Zhang. And I was a Yenching scholar from 2017 to 2019. I'm American, and I graduated with a BS in mathematical and computational science from Stanford University. So before YCA, I think I had a number of interests. One of them was China. One of them was kind of computer science, and one of them was economics. And so I did work on economics research at Stanford, and I worked for a quantitative trading fund. And then I also did some machine learning. During YCA, I interned at 2 tech firms in Beijing. One of them was a blockchain that was called Multivac, and they're actually still around outside the 5th Ring Road, the Eastern 5th Ring Road. And another one was a machine learning company called AI Innovation. And they're based right next to the campus in Zhongguancun. After YCA, I went to Singapore, and I was a data scientist at Grab. Grab is essentially Uber in Southeast Asia. And currently I work at Twitter, and I'm based at San Francisco. I work on the main algorithm feed, algorithms for the Twitter feed. So why YCA? Why did I apply to YCA? So I was very interested in China. I think I took many China studies and East Asian studies courses in undergrad, including kind of Chinese history, Chinese literature, imperial Chinese history, classical Chinese. And I was considering doing graduate work in economics. And I thought that what was something very special I could bring to the field, really China plus anything is a very unique angle and a very important angle. And I think that there were very few opportunities for such a perspective. A lot of people in YCA are very interested in China studies or have prior experience with China studies, but there's an enormous difference from learning in the classroom to being there and listening to talks and really going out into society and finding out how people think about things. And so that was a very strong draw. And I think YCA typically has been very strong in multidisciplinary learning. So on my side, I wanted to connect problems in economics and in China and history. And I thought that YCA was a great way to do that. So at Yenching, I actually got really involved on the PKU campus. I joined the campus tour guide to give tours around the campus. I worked briefly in a computer science lab at Beida at Peking University, and I interned at the 2 tech firms in Beijing. I also got a chance to take a lot of pretty incredible courses through Yenching Academy and also through PKU wider, including innovation policy, which is actually through the School of Economics, China, the US, and global security, which I think was through the School of Public Policy, and then 2 YCA classes, contemporary Chinese public policy and reforms, and China's reform and opening up. There is a lot of learning at YCA, and it does not happen all inside the classroom. I think many of my most formative experiences were discussions with friends, doing field work, and as well as attending many of the great talks that YCA and PKU more broadly puts on. So China in Transition, the required first-year mandatory course, brings together a lot of really inspiring speakers. But there's also there's also always a very interesting conference or other sort of academic event in PKU more broadly, and sometimes in Tsinghua, which is the university across the street. And I got to travel a lot in China, which really opened my eyes because I grew up interested in China, but I've never really spent much time there. And I think that I also benefited from YCA's language program, where not only is Chinese language required, but I had a language partner for my first year of YCA, and I had a dedicated language tutor who was a certified language teaching professional. And I think this increased my Chinese, my confidence in both kind of everyday and also academic Chinese incredibly. Next slide. Okay. So I studied several factors related to economics. My thesis was about venture capital. I studied and compared how VCs co-invest in China versus the United States. And the main point was that the Chinese VC network may be more centralized than that in America. There's more big players. The distribution is a lot more skewed than that of America. And my advisor was Professor Chen Dongming, who was very supportive. He is actually a researcher in innovation policy and one of the teachers of one of the YCA courses. But more than that, he is a practitioner. He actually started his own company in the United States before he became a professor. He was very supportive and very rigorous. He helped a lot with my paper structure and layout. And also he was helpful in pinpointing good data sets. And I think that YCA in general has been, has some resources, and PKU in general, there's resources to research material that you would not, it's very hard to find outside of the institution. I also wrote a paper about the perceptions of inequality in China. And for this, we used a large data set, a longitudinal study in sociology. And it was really enlightening. And we realized that there's a lot of talk about inequality, but it seems that how people perceive inequality is just as important as a factor than inequality itself. So that was a very interesting and strong experience. Next slide. I know you are looking to apply and thinking about, what should I do to put my best foot forward, and why is Yenching Academy a good fit for you? I would say that all Yenching scholars have something very, very deep that you want to research and develop while you're in China. It's not the case that everyone ends up as an academic. I ended up not deciding to go to academia, but many friends have other projects they're affiliated with, other, some of them have websites, or some of them have personal research projects, and China has been an important factor in each person's development. So what is something that you want to spend a lot of time researching and developing while you're in China? Why China now? Think about where you want to go in the future, and why studying in China now is a good fit for your academic or career goals. YCA does not require prior experience in China, but it seems that, especially these days, China is or can be connected to almost every subject that people study or are interested in. So what is that unique angle that you bring to this field? Why Yenching Academy? I know that Brent has discussed a lot of the pretty thorough resources at YCA and PKU in general. So take a look at those and seeing that if it's a good fit for your needs. And note that much of the YCA experience is outside of the classroom. It is going out and talking to people, experiencing society in China, and also learning from your classmates. And so think about whether or not that is something that will be important to you in your future development. And why me? Essentially, what are your goals? What are the major things you want to learn and do in the next 5 years or even your lifetime? And how does China fit into that? At YCA, you are able to interface with almost any topic one might be interested in with regard to China. Because there's so much opportunity, it's very important to think about what specifically do I want to do? What specifically do I want to spend time doing? And I think that would make your application, also as well as your time at Yenching, much more focused and productive. Next slide. So post-graduation, I ended up going into the technology industry, and I actually stayed in Asia. I worked first as a data scientist at Grab in Singapore. And this was actually an opportunity I found out from my Yenching Academy friends. I think Singapore is a very interesting angle, which is a different topic, but also very connected to China, connected to America, where I grew up, and has this kind of cultural back and forth and vibrancy. During COVID, I moved back to the United States, and I found my current job, which is at Twitter in San Francisco. We're working on Twitter's recommendation algorithm. And YCA is still a very big part of my life. I still talk to and keep in touch with my Yenching Academy friends. I also still am very interested in China-related conversations. I'm in several book clubs related to China. I tweet about China. And I think that many of my formative interests and projects were determined by my time at the Yenching Academy.
Thanks so much. I think it's really helpful that you joined us today, because you are one kind of student who maybe wasn't specifically focused on China at the undergraduate level, was focused on other academic disciplines, and were able to apply your knowledge to the study of China and still present a very competitive application profile. So I appreciate that. Excellent. Well, okay, everyone, really, really appreciate your interest in our program. Thank you so much for joining us for this information session. For your information, we've also done other info sessions focusing specifically on individual research areas at YCA. So if you want to learn a little bit more about our research concentrations, please look to our website. There are recordings of those public information sessions available as well. Jungnan, thank you so much for your time. I understand, I know you're busy, and I know this this isn't, working in tech isn't something that is necessarily lends itself to being able to take a couple hours out of your time to help promote YCA and answer potential applicants' questions. We really, really appreciate it. Please take care. And to all of you with us online or watching the recording, we hope to see your applications or nominations coming up in a couple of months, and wish you the best of luck in that process. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close today's information session. Thank you all very much.